Okay. Welcome everyone to today's class, and someone from the chat, I think that's Keisha, made mention that she has a question. Okay, so you can unmute and speak. So we'll just start with your question.
Yes. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Keisha.
Okay. I missed last week. I missed doing last week's assignment.
You what?
If I missed doing last week's assignment, I got the link a little bit too late.
Okay, okay.
Will that, if I do the other ones, will this one affect anything through the boot camp after when I'm about to get my certificate?
Okay, here's the thing. Fortunately for you, I was able to reopen. I reopened the assignment portal again yesterday, and for those that have not done theirs, you can literally do it. You can literally do it. So it's still open for you to do it. But I would
Oh, thank you.
closing it at the end of this week, basically. Okay, Belua,
Thank you. Thank you.
you're welcome. Belua, Ute, you answer.
Good evening, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so I think I missed a class last week. That was the last class on Wednesday. So I'm not sure, or I'm not sure where the assignment, where to get the assignment from, or something like, because the only message I got was the congratulation message, and that has only the link for the class and Discord channel.
Oh,
So I don't know.
oh. So how active are you on the Discord, the official Discord?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how. I'm not that familiar with Discord, right? But I'm not sure where to check which particular channel or that I'm to check for any of those stuff or something.
Okay. So for the Discord, the official Stellar Discord, there is a channel on it called the coding class. So the channel is dedicated to this class. And so every information about assignments and whatsoever is being sent to that channel. So the link to the assignment is literally still on the channel. Does that make sense to you? But notwithstanding, I am going to drop the link to the assignment here. So you all can literally go through it if you haven't done the assignment. Coding class, okay.
Okay, sorry, so I just wanted to confirm Stellar Developers, right?
Yes,
That's then I'm to check on which channel, sir.
the coding class under regional ambassadors.
I've not. I don't know, but I'm not sure. It's not. Maybe I've not seen that part yet. But maybe when later I can see community, I can see developers, I can see tools and services, protocol, community funds. Like those are what I can see here.
Okay, okay. Um, I would not want us to eat into our time, the time for our class. So immediately the class is over, I would direct you as to how you would join the channel, the coding class channel. So it doesn't take up our time for the class. But notwithstanding, in the chat right here, I have dropped the form for the assignment, and you can literally have it from there. But after the class, remind me so we can go through it together. So I'm going to show you how to go about it. Okay. Without much ado, we would start with today's class. And as we all know, our usual ritual is to basically do a review of what we've discussed from previous class, as all of the lectures we would be enjoying literally dovetail into each other. So this means that what you build on top of it. So that leads me to asking the question, is there anyone willing to give us an overview of what we discussed from yesterday's class? Just a reminder of what happened yesterday's class. So is there anyone willing to give us that overview? Okay, Silvanus.
Hello to everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yeah. So yesterday we were discussing about stellar network and some of the features that are on the stellar network, from the base layer to the application layer. Actually, I noticed there are 4 layers: the network layer, data availability, developer tooling, and application layers. And then we discussed some of the features on the stellar which developers works on. That's the mainnet, testnet, and futurenet. And we discussed what testnet is. And they said it's the layer that developers like us will be mostly working on, and where you learn to deploy your smart contracts and do your off-ramping, all of those features that you will be doing. And also we discussed what is the Stellar core, Stellar client, and the node. Yeah.
Excellent. 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 You beautifully given an overview of what we literally discussed yesterday, looking from the different stacks of the Stellar ecosystem down to talking to FutureNet, mainnet, and testnet. So while Silvanus have spoken about this, can someone tell me the difference between the mainnet, testnet, and the FutureNet? Just as a reminder.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yeah. Biodun is my name. So, like we discussed yesterday, testnet is where we have like environment where things that have nothing to do with the real money, could be done in terms of your development using the faucet testnet token, for development. While the main net is not where we have the real money. So anything you are doing as on that mainnet is real. So transaction is real and is real every time. The future net, I will see that as like a better version, where things to deploy um, on the core, on the Stellar core network. So that one is being done, and for the future. But people that are use that one, so they have to understand that this one is like a better. It's not being deployed on the main net, so it's on the future net, and the new development to be shipped to the network is being tested on that future net. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. That beautifully answers that question. And so, having that in mind, we will literally be going straight into today's class, running a Stellar core node. Now, why would you want to run a Stellar core node? This is one of what we'll be discussing today, and it's literally where our class will be starting from today. There are different reasons why you would want to run a node. Now, I'll start by talking from the EVM background. I like talking from the EVM background into the Stellar network, and talking about this gives ideas to people that have been working on EVM chains earlier on. I think there's a feedback coming from Joyce. Okay. So for those coming from the EVM background, and For those that don't even have idea about the EVM background, then when I give reference to the EVM background, it can equip them with that knowledge. So I'll start from there. When running a node, from our last class, we discussed that it means you have to use your resources to run a node. So this means that you have to have either a computer you are using locally, and if you are running a node, you have to be, your uptime has to be 100%. That is, it's not that you have to go offline. It means you have to be online all the time. So this means that you can't complain about electricity. Your electricity has to be on all the time. Now, for those ones that would dare not use their own local machine to run a node because they want a completely 100% uptime, then they could probably buy some cloud servers, VPS, or AWS setup. And all of this, buying and getting all of this involves paying for money. But then, why as an individual would you want to then participate in this running of a node when you know it's going to take your resources? Well, coming from the EVM background, most people partake in the node for one very big reason. One of it is the incentives that come from it. Participating in the node means you are definitely, for those that are validating. Now, there are different types of people that participate by, running the node. In the EVM background, now I'll use Ethereum as an example. When you participate and you validate transactions and you add transactions to the block, what this does is that you are paid. And this payment is coming from the gas fee that the user literally used to send the transaction. So in this case, that is more like a reason why a person might just be like, okay, I want to run a node. I want to use it as a source of income. You understand? So the person then sets up everything and then it keeps running the node. But apart from this, are there other benefits of running a node to the whole blockchain as in general? Well, here are some of it. One of the benefits is increased network decentralization. What does this mean? This means that when there are so many people running the nodes in different geographical environments, it increases decentralization. So that means someone from this end cannot just change something. It will affect the whole network, and then the network kicks out that person, especially if the person is pushing some fraud transactions. Now, when I say fraud transactions, I'm talking about the person trying to change what is on the network. I gave example of when from our first class about someone that joins the network and is being malicious. That kind of person is kicked out of the network. When I use the example of the UI to show how decentralization works, when node A, node B, node C are having the same data, but node D is having a completely different data. This system kicks out node D, understanding that this person is a malicious person. So having nodes, running nodes in different locations, increased number of people running the node will actually help decentralization better. Because imagine just 2 people are running the node. That means that if this person changes something, then it's 50-50. How sure are we that what this person changes is not the correct thing? So that is it. And talking about decentralization literally comes into play with security. So when it is more decentralized, the security is increased. And so the potential for just one person to influence the network decision reduced to 0. So just one person cannot change anything in the network. So imagine you send your smart contract and the person changes smart contract there because there are only 2 people running the node. It becomes a problem. So this is one of the benefits for running a node. you can think of much more benefits as an individual, because when we have more decentralization, more security, and in cases for chains that gas fees are paid to the people running the node, all of these things literally help the system. Now, as an individual, you might choose to want to run a node. Are there steps to running a node? Well, you would have to go through the Stellar official documentation. I'm not running a node. I'm not running a node. So if you want to run a node, you want to help improve the decentralized system, then you can go through the Stellar official documentation and you would get how to set up everything basically. And running the node as an individual, if you are willing to increase the network security, that you playing your part in improving the decentralization, then definitely you will definitely get the details as to how to run it. Also, to run a node, I've made mention that there are certain hardware requirements that you must literally have. For example, if you are using your local machine, the amount of computation power your local machine can give. Now, when you are talking of computation power, you are talking of the GPU and hardwares that would run this software efficiently, this client efficiently. Also, explanation of how nodes participate in the consensus process and contribute to the network health. That would also be discussed at the course of our lecture. It might not be discussed today. Let me see. It won't be discussed today because that would have to go on to where we are discussing about what a quorum is, how voting happens on the network. So that won't be discussed today, but look forward to the class where we'll be discussing this, because as an individual who would want to run the system, it's important that you have this knowledge. Horizon API. Got some news sometimes ago that Stellar does not really use the Horizon API anymore, that it focuses on okay, Shalinga.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Good
I would like to understand what is the benefit of running a node as an individual. Are you gaining the gas, or is gas is going to the huge validators?
Okay. Now remember I made mention of the EVM chains. Now, for running on the EVM chain, apart from decentralization, enhancing the security, and to avoid just one person influencing the network, on the benefits includes payment of gas. Okay, someone please, may you share documentation of every class, because sorry, I'll continue to answer your question. I just want to read this. May you share documentation of every class, because some of us miss class due to network problem. Yeah, all of the classes are on Notion. Nomad shared the Notion page earlier, and you can get all the classes and the slides for the classes there. So going back to your question, yeah, people get incentivized for joining the network, especially on most EVM chains. But Stellar, it's kind of different in their own case. The way you get your reward is through the decentralization and increased security of it. Yeah, so someone have shared the link to it. So does that make sense to you? I mean, if you are able to increase the decentralization of the network, would you not be happy to do that? Apart from forgetting about the incentives coming from, the payment of gas going to the validators and all of that. If that was not even in place, would you not be happy to, add to the decentralized network? It would be great to add, because you can literally participate in the network, and when it's time to vote, you can vote for a transaction to not be added and all of that kind of thing. So that's in fact, let's not even talk more about it now, because when we start talking about what it really means to run a node, we go deep into it and you would see more information. So yeah. The Horizon API. Yeah. I was saying earlier that I was getting some information about how Stellar focuses more on the RPC and not more like the Horizon. But when you are studying about a chain, it's always important you have knowledge of the presets. You have knowledge of everything that happened to the chain and how the chain is moving up until the current state. So I found it as important to share knowledge about the horizon even in this class. It's just like talking about blockchain. I want to use Bitcoin as an example, Ethereum as an example. If any of you read the Ethereum book, you notice that the book literally starts from the genesis of things to how Ethereum moved from different fields. So it's nice to have the idea as to how the whole system goes, even if it is no longer in use. So what then is the Horizon API? It's literally a RESTful API server that provides programmatic access to the Stellar network. If we cast our mind back to when we were talking about networks yesterday, we were talking about access points to which you can access the Stellar chain itself. And one of what we were talking about was RPCs, Horizon, indexes, that's indexers. So Horizon is part of this, and it literally gives you access to the chain, allowing you to submit transaction, to query transaction, to query data that has been sent to the chain. One of the things it does is it acts as an interface for applications. It facilitates communication between application and Stellar network. So imagine you are building your dApp. One of the things you could use is the Horizon API. So the Horizon API literally helps you, probably if you have some functions you have deployed, you have a contract and you've deployed the WASM of the contract to Stellar, and you want to then talk about interacting with it, sending the transaction, or calling a read function from your deployed contract. This can literally help you. It can facilitate that communication, and that's literally the work of the Horizon API. And that thing is, it communicates via the SDKs, web browser, or command tools. So it supports various methods of interaction to suit different developers' needs. So as we proceed, we would see why it's nice we just focus on the RPC, but as I've made mention of earlier, it's important that we have knowledge of everything, literally. Having knowledge of everything is important to, understanding the full chain. Some additional details, the data endpoints, it provides endpoints for accessing account information, transaction history, and more. You can use it as an example when comparing with something like EthasJS. With EthasJS, you still need the RPC actually to, connect to the chain. So yeah, you still need an RPC to connect to the chain because you need a provider, and that the RPC will serve as provider. So I would not use that as an example. For integration, it's easy to integrate with existing systems and applications through RESTful calls. For the backend developers, we understand how easy it is to make RESTful calls when you are talking about APIs. So it's the same situations. You can just literally integrate it with your front end if you are using it as a RESTful API. So as you can see, it's just an example of the Horizon API. So another benefit from this picture, let me now ask this. Who can provide an Horizon API? Who can provide an Horizon API? Like the Horizon RESTful API, who can provide it? Looking at this picture, based on what you can see, Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, okay. Um, can you unmute and speak your answer up?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I think like based on what we see, technically everyone can provide.
An excellent answer. So now, with your answer, why can anyone provide it based on what we can see? Why can everyone provide it based on what you can see?
So as we directly connected to the key providing system, we have all resources needed to share across or within the network.
Thank you. Excellent. So anybody that is running the client that has a node running it has the full system with him. So he can literally expose this system through the Horizon RESTful API. And that's justice, as you have mentioned. Thank you very much for that answer. So another benefit, Chalinga, for your question you asked, is that imagine you are building your own application and you do not want to rely on a third-party person providing the Horizon, for example. Just like if you're coming from the Ethereum background, that's EVM background, you could think of third-party providers like Alchemy, Infura. You can think of those. Imagine you don't want to depend on this. Now, we are talking of Stellar. We are not talking of the EVM department. Imagine you don't want to depend on these people. You can connect to the system yourself and then provide your own access to the system so you can send transactions. You don't have to connect to the system to be a validator. Rather, you can run your node and all you have to do is just having access to sending transaction and also querying transaction from the chain. So that's literally another benefit of using the Horizon API. So all of this is just repetition of what we have made mention of, that it can be accessed using various tools and SDK, making it easy to interact with the Stellar network. It's repetition, basically. And don't forget, I said repetition is the father of learning. And that's why we want to look at it again and talk about it. So using SDKs to simplify communication, SDKs abstract the complexity of direct API calls, yes, providing a more intuitive interface, yes. Example of using call to interact with Horizon are meant to demonstrate a basic call command to fetch account information. Yeah, I'm going to do that as we proceed on. Additional details, we have the authentication, explanation of API key usage and rate limiting and error handling. All of these things are informations that are not new, especially for backend developers. You know, your ability to release an endpoint for your front-end department, or for you to release an endpoint for third-party users. So you could release an endpoint and you can get this endpoint, and getting this endpoint would involve you adding certain restrictions to calling this endpoint. And as a developer, you definitely have to understand how error handling works and all of these things. So that is literally what this is talking about. RPC overview. So we've spoken about Horizon. The RPC still is under the same department as the Horizon. So Soroban's RPC server facilitates interaction with smart contracts on the Stellar blockchain, handling requests and responses. So just like the Horizon, RPC instead allows you, it serves as a provider that allows you to connect to the Stellar chain, and for you to literally send transaction, view transaction, view data on the chain. And usually you use your RPC when you are deploying your smart contracts. You set up your RPC to communicate. So when you are deploying, you deploy through the RPC. When you are interacting. That is, when I say interacting, that is you are calling functions from your deployed smart contract. It could be a write function or a read function. All of these goes through the JSON RPC server for the smart contract. And we would see more of this in practical as we literally start writing our code. Although when we start writing the code, we will set this up, and once we set it up, once and for all, you just literally see how it is done. So it's not a big deal at all. The most important thing is to understand that as an individual, the RPC is what helps you connect to the Stellar chain, just without you having to run a node. Just have it at the back of your mind like that. So without you having to say you want to run a node, the RPC is important for you to connect to the Stellar chain. The SDF provides pre-RPC endpoints for testnet, FutureNet, suitable for development and testing. So as a developer, you don't need to run the node. You don't need to pay for computing resource because there are RPC free endpoints that you can literally use for interacting with your smart contract without any cost, basically. So both for the testnet and for the FutureNet, all of these are literally they are RPCs, free RPCs for you. But then one of the issues developers face is when they are trying to use an RPC that is open. When I say open, it means an RPC that is overused by so many people, whereby there's a capacity to what the endpoint can take. But then it's probably due to whatever server it's being hosted on. But then you keep your RPC. Is just like, especially when, although as we have made mention of, for the testnet and the FutureNet, there are free RPCs that can be used. But then when you have a RPC for probably your mainnet, you don't want to share it with many people so that it doesn't slow down your own usage. So that's basically it. As we go into development, you understand how to set all of this, and then it will help while developing. SDK overview. So SDK is basically developer toolkits, and it makes life easier. It makes life easier. But then before I move on to SDK, why don't I pause here and ask the question? Is there any question based on what we've been talking about? Is there any question? Okay, Silvanus.
I didn't quite understand this Roban RPC.
Okay. So when you want to interact with the blockchain, I've made mention that you have to either have access, because at least you want to interact with the blockchain, there must be an entry point. The entry point could either be you running the full node itself, or you running the client, using your node to run the client, basically, or using an RPC. Now, an RPC is just like opening an endpoint for you to interact with the blockchain. I think a simple example I will use is a database. I'll use the example of a database. Imagine you have a database. Now, where that database is exactly, you as an individual might not have access to that database. To update the database, to delete from the database, or to read from the database, you might not have access. You need an endpoint to have access to that database. You can look at the Stellar chain itself like that database. You need an endpoint to it to access it. So now, when you talk about Soroban, Soroban is a smart contract for the Stellar chain. So for Soroban smart contract, when you are done writing your smart contract, you compile it and then you deploy it. So what you deploy is the WASM, and when you deploy this WASM, how are you able to deploy it? How do you push? I mean, you wrote the code on your local environment. How do you push this code to, the Stellar chain, the Stellar ledger? This is through the RPC. The RPC is more like your bridge, your road to, pushing and deploying your code there. And when you deploy your code there, your code don't want to just sit there. You literally want to interact with your code. You want to interact with your smart contract. You want to make write calls. You want to make read calls to your smart contract. All of this you have access to doing using the RPC. The RPC is literally that link between you and that Stellar chain without you having to run the node yourself. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah. Does anyone also have any other question? Can we get a thumbs up if we are fine to move on? Okay. Okay. SDK. For many people that have been writing code for a long while, I'm sure the word SDK is not new to you. It's literally what makes life easier. I would literally say it makes life easier, especially for those that are front-end developers. When there's an SDK that has everything you need, you are just happy to, to make use of the functions inside of the SDK. And Stellar has provided this. It literally helps interaction with the Horizon and the RPC easier. So there are different methods in the SDKs that can literally help you make send transaction, query transaction, check account details and all of these things. The SDK makes it easy for you to do all of this. So literally, the SDK, you can see it as something that helps you. Now, if you for the AVM chains, if you deploy your Solidity code, okay, let me see what Matthias wrote. Excellent. I like this, Matthias. I like this. So the RPC is literally what helps you connect. Good. So for those that want to even have a clearer view, now look at what Matthias made mention of in the chat. That actually makes sense. That makes sense. So coming back to the SDK literally make your life easy. Now, as an EVM, for someone that has been writing on EVM, if you write your Solidity smart contract, how would your front-end engineer communicate with your deploy smart contract? I mean, for the front end, you might use languages like React. I would not call that a language. You use JavaScript, you use React, the framework or the library. Then, or you use something like Vue or Angular. Now, if you use this kind of frameworks and you want to communicate or interact with your deployed Solidity smart contract, you need a source to interact with it. And that's why from previous class, I spoke about one. You talk about Ethers.js, talk about Web3.js, you talk about Rainbow Kits, and on like that. So all of these are different tools that help interacting with your deployed smart contract easy on the EVM chain. Coming to the Stellar chain, the same thing applies to the Stellar SDK. So the Stellar SDK literally helps it easy for you to interact with your deployed smart contracts. Now, the interesting thing about it is that the Stellar SDK supports some languages, and it's interesting that it supports JavaScript, Python, Java, supports Go. So if you are writing your code and you obviously know that, first of all, your smart contract, your Soroban smart contract, you're writing it in Rust, is a framework written with Rust. And so once you deploy that, or if you then want to interact with it for whatever application you're trying to build, whether it's an Android application or it's you want to build the front end to it, all of these things, you can select the SDK you would want, the language you would want to interact with this deployed smart contract. And in this case, as I've mentioned, we have JavaScript, Python, Java, Go, and all of this. So demonstration of using the SDK will come when we have written the Soroban smart contracts. So that would involve when we have started writing code. Notice that all of our classes, we have not touched any code. Don't worry. We write code and you'll be tired of writing code. Most of our classes, after we are done with this introduction, will involve us writing code a lot. And one thing I really want you to do is to practice it. The more you practice it, the better you become when you are writing, and follow up. So community contribution, overview of the community contributed SDKs and tools. The interesting thing about Stellar is that you can contribute to open source. What do I mean by this? Now, there are different issues that are being created on the GitHub. And for these SDKs, you can look at these issues and then contribute to it. Contributing to it helps increase your open source contribution status, especially when you go through some certain open source contribution platforms like Only Dust. This literally gives you opportunity to, in fact, be paid. Some open source contributions are paid. So you can go to this, some of these SDKs are listed on this open source and with issues, and just pick one issue, apply for it, and then you get paid for it if it's the issue that has monetary value attached to it. So contribute to the open source. If you feel the way this is being implemented, you can optimize it and make it better. You can even open an issue, create an issue on it yourself, and contribute to it. Remember, the whole system, to make it stronger, decentralized with higher security, every one of us have to contribute to it. Imagine when the founder created Stellar, no one was willing to run the node too. How would it look like? So doing your part to, adding security and decentralization to the node is taking up steps like this. And it could add to you when it comes to finance. As some of these open source contributions, you literally get paid for it. Developing with SDKs. Using SDKs, developers can write smart contracts in Rust and interact with them in other languages, streamlining the development processes. So I was discussing with someone some times ago about when I write smart contracts. When I write smart contracts, I don't like when the person interacting with the smart contract has issues. Now, when I write smart contract, I write it in a way whereby I allow whoever is interacting with the smart contract, even if they are non-blockchain developers, I make life easier for them. How can you do this? It's literally creating SDKs. So imagine you write your smart contract in Rust, and then you create an SDK that allows anybody to call any function from your smart contract in whatever language you choose to write it in. It makes life easier for them. Imagine you have a team, and for the blockchain team, for the blockchain department, you guys write your smart contract, and then the front-end department, most of them are not blockchain inclined. How then would it be easy for them to interact? All of this is made easier when you just write SDKs, and these SDKs you're writing, you literally make use of even Stellar SDK to make it even simpler and better for those people that would be, interacting with this smart contract. So it makes life easier and simple. What are some points to take on from this? You write the smart contract in Rust, and we have been talking about Soroban. Don't worry, we will definitely get down into writing Soroban. But before we get down into writing Soroban, we are going to have enough knowledge of Rust. So you have to equip yourself. We would be teaching Rust in this class, and that means that we are going to start from the very fundamental of Rust. So don't worry about that. If you've not written Rust before, it's all right. It's all right. Just like this class started from the basic knowledge on blockchain, the same way the class will start with Rust. So no problem. If you have not even written any language before, you definitely will learn how to do that. The most important thing is following up, not missing classes. And if you miss class, ensure you watch the videos again so you can meet up. Because most classes, like I made mention of, is built up on top of another classes. So yes. So at the end of this semester, at least everybody should be able to write a Soroban smart contract. Remember that we made mention also that we will be having some competition, more like an hackathon, that where you can cluster as a team to, so think of what you want to build, and then at the end of the day, the team, or we had select about 3 teams, take first, second, and third, and they all literally take something home financially. So look forward to writing the smart contract in Soroban. Lumens. Lumens are the native cryptocurrency of Stellar Network. Before we move on, I think we've spoken about SDKs and we are moving on from this chapter to a different chapter. Is there any question from anybody up to this point? Is there any question? Don't worry, you can take us back. We will definitely answer the question. Is there any question from anybody before we move on? Just to be clear and sure everybody is on the same page with me. Any question? Can I get a thumbs up so we can proceed to show that everyone is together with me? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Lumens. What are lumens? I'm sure for those people that are not developers, I'm sure you must have, for you to come in contact with Stellar, one way or the other, you must have heard of the XLM. The XLM, which is Lumens, is literally the native currency of the Stellar network. For other chain, for a chain like Ethereum, the native currency for Ethereum is Ether. In fact, some people call it Ethereum. Send me some Ethereum. That's wrong. The native token for Ethereum is Ether, and the symbol is ETH. So just like that, the native token for Stellar is Lumens, and the symbol is M. So now, what then is Lumens used for? One is it's used for the transaction fees. It's used for rent. It's used for maintaining minimum balances. Now, when we talk about transaction fees, I'm sure everybody understands. If not everybody, don't worry. We've spoken about gas. When sending a transaction to the chain, what you used to pay for it is not dollar, is not euro, is not what you used to pay for your transaction on the Stellar network is lumens. Imagine you're writing your smart contract and you want to deploy the smart contract. The gas fee you pay it in lumens. So now that's why we said lumens is attached with a financial backing. You can convert your lumen to even your fiat, your native currency, because it has financial backing. So when you are deploying, when you are working, that's why we said it's better as a developer to use the test nets to deploy, because you have to pay these test tokens instead. And these test tokens you can get from different faucets free of charge, instead of having to pay for the real thing. So just like we've mentioned, lumens are used for transaction fees. Rent. Can someone tell me what rent is doing in this whole thing? Can someone just give me an idea of what they think rent is for this? I just want to hear a viewpoint of what you think rent is when it comes to this. Okay? Yeah, you can speak up. You can speak up. You can unmute and speak.
Okay, I'm thinking maybe they allow maybe this borrow and lend kind of thing that someone can borrow this particular money or something. I'm not sure, but something like that. Can
Thank
borrow like
Thank you. Thank you. That's actually a beautiful idea. That's actually a beautiful idea. Now what she's talking about. I'm coming to you, Silvanus, but what she is talking about is coming from the DeFi angle of things, where you are talking of a lending protocol, where you have an asset that is being dropped, and then this asset, you use this for a collateral or something. That's under DeFi. That's a beautiful point. I appreciate that, but that's not what we are talking about. So can we hear from Silvanus before we hear from Bjorn, please? But I appreciate that answer.
Okay, so my thinking is when we speak of rent is when they use a system of proof of stake. So people put their lumens in a stake pool to support it, and in return they get a certain amount of XLM. I think something like that.
You see, I appreciate you people's answer, because now you are thinking of DeFi, and literally that is another DeFi point that's staking, whereby you stake your tokens and you get rewards through APY rewards. So your token that is staked could be staked for per annum or a year or 6 months, and while all of this is being staked, you are cultivating the token, whereby you are then giving rewards on it gradually. Yes, that's another one, DeFi angle still. Thank you, but that's not what we are talking about. Can you hear from Jordan then, please?
Okay. For me, I don't know if I'm correct, but it's from the because I know at some point I will use this illustration when some organization or some protocol, should I say protocol? No, not maybe organization that they sponsor individuals like users, to onboard them for market penetration, to onboard them to the ecosystem. So they sponsor a couple of accounts. People can create and maybe give them like one Lumen, maybe SLM. I can't really remember now. So they'll be able to have access, to create account on this on Stellar. So I feel maybe that kind of token is used for rent purpose, for gas purpose in the ecosystem, and yeah, I don't know if I'm correct, but just to prevent spamming, so for purpose of storage or stuff like that. I can't really remember now. Yeah.
You just made the answer to it. Now you've spoken about so many things, but this storage you made mention of is actually the answer to the question. Now, when you spoke about to avoid something like an attack, now you're talking about the gas fees. Yes, that's one of the uses of lumens, but that's not the meaning of the rent we are talking about here. But that answer, storage, is the answer. What do I mean by storage? As we move on in learning about the Stellar smart contract, that's Soroban smart contract, you are going to learn something different on this chain that is quite different from other chains, like the AVM chains. That is storage. Now, when you are writing your smart contract in Stellar, you are making sure you are understanding what kind of storage you are making use of. And in fact, when you are talking about smart contract auditing, when it comes to Stellar, this is in fact a very important point, because at the end of the day, some people might not want to be a Soroban smart contract. They might want to be auditors. They might want to be auditing, and auditing is a very big space too when it comes to smart contracts. So this is one of the feature storage. Now, when you are writing a smart contract, the storage is involved in the sense that you have what we call temporary storage and permanent storage. So you have to specify inside of your smart contract that the storage you are using is for so amount of time. So that is, it is for probably 1,000, 10,000 ledgers. That is when you want to use this storage. And that makes sense. So after that particular time, if it's a temporary storage, the storage is archived. And so what this means is that you no longer have the ability to interact with that smart contract. So that means that for you to interact with this deployed smart contract, you have to pay for this storage. And payment for this storage, as we implied, the temporary and the permanent storage, they are different. So the temporary will be archived after some particular time. For the permanent, you have to pay for it. And so it's more like you are renting for your smart contract to live on the ledger. So that is literally the idea behind this rent. So thank you very much, Biodun. Now, this is a very different concept, especially for people that are coming from a different chain. Now, if you are coming from a different chain, like writing Solidity, you don't have to specify this. All you have to do is to write your code and deploy, and this smart contract will live on forever on the chain. But then when it comes to Stellar, your storage can either be temporary or permanent. When it is temporary, it goes into archive, and you will no longer have access to this smart contract anymore. And at the end of the day, it's a vulnerability. Imagine you are writing your smart contract and you know that this smart contract is holding people's balance, and then you make the smart contract have temporary storage. We're going to talk more about this. I'm just elaborating and preparing your mind when we start talking more about this. Imagine that smart contract that is holding people's balance, and the smart contract is holding money, then you make it temporary. At that particular point, you understand that the moment it is archived, the storage that holds the amount of money people participating in that smart contract, the record is gone, and you no longer have access to it. This is a big vulnerability when it comes to Suruban writing of the smart contract. So we're going to learn this when we are talking about auditing and some of the vulnerabilities you can think of. But then this actually just cuts across all of those. And I just want to make mention of it because at the end of the day, as time goes on, we are going to talk more about all of these different things. And from there, you would learn more about how the Suruban smart contract is completely different from the Solidity smart contract or from other smart contracts on different chains. But be rest assured, if you are coming from the EVM background, it's the same idea. It's the same idea of how storage works. But then it's different in the sense that you have to specify what type of storage and how long the storage would be used for. And then with this, you then pay for how long the storage is used for. We are going to stop here today as our time is fast spent. But notwithstanding, I would like to hear if anyone have questions based on what we've just spoken of. Are there any questions?
Okay, so my question look like a layman question. Like, so I just want to explain detail more the difference between usefulness of RCP, sorry, I say RPC now,
RPC.
And then Horizon. You know, because Horizon has to do with consuming API too, and RCP has to do with maybe interacting or interfacing from maybe your smart contract and the network. So I just want to clarify. I just want to be sure that I got exactly what you mean. Yeah.
I get your idea, and I was expecting someone would actually ask this for them to talk about why do we need RPC? Why do we need Horizon? What's the difference between? Remember, I made mention before starting to talk about Horizon that Horizon informations are being passed that it is no longer in use like it used to be, but I'm making sure I teach it so that you have the full knowledge of everything going on in the Stellar ecosystem. But that leads us to the question. when you're talking about Horizon, it's more like an API, and an API that you can literally use to interact directly with the Stellar chain. I think imagine you want to query balance. It's like an API, RESTful API. But in contrary to that, RPC is more like um, it's like an endpoint that you use for your smart contract. So you use the RPC for your smart contract. That is when you are deploying your smart contract, it's the RPC you would use to deploy your smart contract. It's the RPC you would use to interact with this your deployed smart contract. That's why when we were talking about RPCs, you notice we were talking more about smart contracts. But when we are talking about the Horizon, we are talking about communicating more like an endpoint, an API to communicate with the chain directly. But the RPC instead, it's more with talking of how you are deploying your smart contract, how you are interacting with your deployed smart contract. So that's more like the difference between both of them, literally.
Okay, sorry. So thank you for the explanation. I just want to last clarity on that using from the EMV side. So like let's say maybe MetaMask, interacting with the blockchain, that's like the RPC, right? And
Yes,
scan, like when we are querying the balance on using the Explorer, scan Explorer, maybe material and ETA scan or BNB scan or or Stellar, to query the balance, check the information. So it means that the Horizon work in that capacity, ability to check details and those.
exactly.
Okay.
You can literally put it like that. But it is
All right.
not a scan, no. It is not a scan, but we can say it's kind of the mechanism behind it. It's more
Okay.
like what you use to query the data, you get it. So that's
Okay.
literally it. That's literally it. That's literally it. Yeah. So we will take it at that, and we will be ending our class here. I will stop the recording, and thank you very much, everyone, for today's class. And I look forward to having tomorrow's class. Thank you very much.